Emotional intelligence is learning what triggers me, what is my emotions like, and what is unsolved. When something comes up, like anger or sadness or worry, or if I talk to someone that's reflecting a mirror of what I want to solve, right? Something's going to come up. That mirror is so profoundly important because if I am getting angry, I am fully unhealed or half unhealed, or I haven't fully healed that part. So I count us very lucky when those come up. Linking it to emotional intelligence is how do we handle it?
Welcome to Bookings and Bottles, Season 2, the podcast for travel professionals who want more than just a little bit of bookings. They want insights, systems, and stories. I'm your host, Simone Snedorf, and as the founder of Ontologic, I work with workflows, habits, and much more. I do still have a deep love for this industry. And I know that the reality is the reactive chaos behind the scenes of what happens. So this podcast is to invite you to a seat at the table where we unpack the strategies, the struggles, and the smart systems that drive our industry forwards in South Africa and beyond. This is for those who enjoy a little bit of wine and a lot of wisdom and learning through honest conversation. Whether you're just starting your journey or you're deep in the game, we're here to offer practical tools and the kind of real talk you'd expect over a great glass of wine. But today we're inviting a very special guest. Every business has a bottom line, but today's guest focuses on the people who actually get you there. Najiba Adams is back at the table, and she's a master at building communications and trust-based systems that make a business truly breathe. We loved having her at our first conversation, so we had to bring her back for round 2. Najiba, welcome back to Bookings and Bottles.
Thank you so much, Simone. I appreciate it, and I'm quite excited to be here. Season 2, 2026.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. I really had so much fun with you, and it really was such a grounding episode. Again, grateful that you showed us such a different perspective on everything we spoke about. Without further ado, let's get started with this episode. The topic is about empathy. This is a topic that I'd love to speak about, just with the things that you resonate with when it comes to being an empathetic person in the business place.
I think when people hear empathy, they think of so many volumes of information, what they've read, what they've seen on a podcast, what they want to do, what they think they should do. The simplest way to explain empathy is to understand that someone else is going through some emotion, that they want to share something with you, that they're resonating with a feeling within themselves, and they're vulnerably and honestly bringing it out. And they're trusting you as the person on the other side to listen to them, to hold space for them, to enter into a space of their vulnerability without dimming that light or overpowering. So picture walking on the path with a person, but they're in the full light of the path and your hand is sticking in the path. That's what allows people to be empathetic towards each other. Empathy is playing small in the moment that someone needs you, allowing them to be the bigger fish in the pond at the moment. And I think everybody's trying to be empathetic with everyone, but if we surrender to empathy rather than try to control it, it would be much better for us.
When you say hold space for someone, I think that is such a great way to visualize it, because it's taking yourself outside of just me and saying there is someone who needs me to just simply hold space for them, to just be, to able to express themselves, to be able to get angry, to be able to even just be still. That is such a great simplification of empathy, and allowing people to basically understand that maybe someone wants to do something that you don't really understand, but you can still be there for them. You can still be empathetic for them, is just allow them the space. So that was really, really wonderful. Thank you for that. And I know what goes hand in hand with empathy is emotional intelligence. We briefly spoke about this in our last episode, and I really think that this is a great topic to speak about, because a lot of people don't actually know what it is. And I really want to know more about it. And one question about this is what are the behaviors of someone who has a high emotional intelligence? What does that look like? What does emotional intelligence mean to you as well?
The thing about emotional intelligence is we were all brought up differently. I want to bring that message across. There is not one standard of you need to reach the level 5, the level 6, the level 7 of emotional intelligence. You and I both possess emotional intelligence because we put in the work, but our levels are different. So what is emotional intelligence? It's the ability to feel and again allow space for your emotions to come through. When we were younger, Simone, we're both in our 30s. What did they say about anger?
Yeah,
Suppress it. Don't let it
exactly.
out. I remember moments where it would be perceived that I'm throwing a tantrum because I'm angry. However, I did not know any other way to express myself. So express is a very important word. Emotional intelligence is how do you express your emotions? How do you bring your emotions across? Now, how can you do that in a healthy way? If you allow your emotions a space, everybody knows a scenario. If they close their eyes, they can feel this. They're sitting in a meeting, they're sitting in an interaction, and someone says something that triggers them. Now, a trigger simply is it makes you feel uncomfortable in your core. And what do we do with it in a meeting? We suppress it. We smile through it. We pretend that it's not there. Now, I'm not suggesting that you get up and you throw the glass of water across to the person. But what I am suggesting is in the space that you are in, you either need to get up, go to the bathroom and absorb it, get a glass of water. You need to feel within your stomach. If you're at this level, you take 3 breaths under your breath without noticing so you can re-regulate yourself. Emotional intelligence is learning what triggers me, what is my emotions like, and what is unsolved. When something comes up, like anger or sadness or worry, or if I talk to someone that's reflecting a mirror of what I want to solve, right? Something's going to come up. That mirror is so profoundly important because if I am getting angry, I am fully unhealed or half unhealed, or I haven't fully healed that part. So I count us very lucky when those come up. Linking it to emotional intelligence is how do we handle it? In the hospitality, tourism, and people service industry, we're working with people. Emotional intelligence is very vital. It is vital because if you have a guest that is complaining, you need to be able to understand how to regulate yourself. The regulate does not mean the guest is talking, you leave the guest and you stop talking and you leave the guest lingering. What tools do you have in your toolbox for your emotional intelligence? The breathing techniques in meditation, in ancient time, in Hinduism, in Islam, in all religions, they talk about breathing techniques. It's not religious based. So if we can understand that our emotional intelligence is connected to our emotions and can be regulated with a breathing technique in a moment where you can't walk away, then we've taken steps simply towards improving our emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. When it comes to these breathing techniques, meditation, and mindfulness, I think one of the things people don't realize is that it's something you have to practice. You don't do it in the moment. If you are to go into a fight or something, you first practice and learn how to fight. You first learn the movements so that when someone comes at you, you're going to use the techniques you've learned to combat that. You've learned to punch and block. When it comes to mindfulness and grounding yourself, it's something that you need to practice outside of being emotional so that when you are emotional, that this comes easier than trying to think about what did that person say? Oh, I need to do 3 breaths. We discussed this before the podcast is one of the things that I constantly say to myself is I have the freedom to choose how I respond to my environment. And that comes from Viktor Frankl, who was in a concentration camp. And he basically found the last of the human freedoms. It was the last thing that they could not take from him. Even if I'm angry, I still choose how I respond to the environment. And I feel like that links with you saying going to take a drink of water, removing yourself from the environment, and then coming back with the ability to respond in a professional way in our environment and in a way that you're proud of. And then I think the other thing is that you spoke about is the triggers, which I thought was really brilliant. And one of the things that resonates with me is Cole Young speaks about the shadow. And it says sometimes other people trigger us. And if someone triggers you, sometimes a question I ask myself is, what is it in the other person that triggers me that I do not see in myself? Sometimes, and it's that mirror again, like you're saying, is there something that I haven't explored in myself that I can see in this person? And it's happen a lot of the times where it is something in me that I haven't dealt with or worked on.
I'd like to add something, Simone, that there's two things that you said that really lit a spark in me. The first thing is Brené Brown says, don't walk through the world looking for the places where you don't belong, because you will find. Your focus is so important, right? And if you go around the world looking for where don't I belong, what's someone doing wrong, and we were all brought up that way, we're going to find triggers. And I've been with many life coaches because I'm a life coach, she's a life coach. And the recent one of last year, our season together was short, but our lessons were so profound. And she taught me this word, glimmers. Glimmers are the opposite of triggers. And something I wrote just before you pressed record was, focus on what you want to attract. And it's so simple, but it's so hard to do. Point blank period. I'm saying focus on what you want, focus on your goals, focus on the solution, not the problem. But like you were saying, Simone, you have to train your body. You don't go into meditation the first day and awaken or find the space or get that goosebumps. Meditation, and I want to set the record straight, and I can't remember if I said this the first time, meditation is not crossing your knees, sitting on the floor, listening to audio in nature, and connecting your fingers. Meditation is if you enjoy hiking to meditate, if you enjoy making a butterfly or angel in the snow, if you enjoy mountain biking and you're on your own, that's meditation. My meditation, and I started this year, is hugging a big tree. And one of my friends who was with me, all my friends, okay, most of my friends are over 70. So there's wisdom there. And she said to me, I hugged the tree and I came back. She was sitting on the bench and she said, go to the tree and ask the tree for wisdom, because trees have so much wisdom when you hug the tree. And then hug again and ask the tree to take away anything that you're going through, because they can hold that with their layers. Now, how is that not meditation for me? I was barefoot in the environment, hugging a tree. And what actually happened in it, and this is what a glimmer is, it's a ripple effect. There was a girl sitting on the side and I walked past and she said, does it work? So I said, I'm not sure, but I love doing it and I always feel better. And she said, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to try it. And she went and she stayed there for 5 minutes. And for some reason, I thought I need to stay in the space, you know, when you can feel. And then she came off and she was crying and she said, I'm going through the most. And I said, do you want a hug? And I'm getting goose skin because we both needed that hug after hugging a tree. But here's back to my point. Empathy, emotional intelligence, meditation, and connecting to myself was all in that story. But the most focal point of that is I let go of control and I allowed people's advice to come to me. And I'm in the season of letting go of control, and I tell you that that is not the easiest. But so much comes to you when you do that. So I needed to share that because you lit the spark of explaining to everybody what meditation could be as opposed to what we think it must be. And glimmer. If there's one thing that people take away from this podcast today, it's look for the glimmers. Go through the world searching for the glimmers.
I absolutely love that. And thank you for sharing that. We don't find a lot of time for gratitude. And I think the glimmer is quite linked to that hopefulness. It's almost been lost, I feel. When you become an adult, that hopefulness of when you're 19 to 20, the world is your oyster. You're hopeful. You're hopeful for everything. Speaking about glimmers, it's a great way to instill hopefulness back into our generation that has been somewhat lost through technology, through so many different things. I definitely think that is a great point. Thank you. And speaking of technology and communication, the travel professional is very high stressed, and it's always about giving the best guest experience and sometimes even dealing with difficult guests. To be human is to have good days and bad days, as we just spoke about. We did speak about forms of meditation, and if you have anything more to add on with this, in this world where you're giving so much to other people, you're being exactly what they need. There's no space for oneself. And I wanted to see if you had any ideas of how can people regain a sense of self when you work for someone else.
So the first thing that popped in my head was we're both from the hospitality, tourism, retail, service industry. what I've learned, because this is, I think, my 21st or 22nd year in the industry. I learned, and I'm going to refer to myself, I choose not to take care of myself. Maybe my self-respect, self-preservation, self-love wasn't enough. So I used the busyness of hospitality. I used the inability to make time for myself as an excuse not to take care of myself. So that's where I want to start. Because I think we blame the industry and we blame our bosses and we blame the environment. But the only person in control of our lives is ourselves. And the journey of self-care is a journey that you can take at any point, at any job. So my answer is a little different to the question in terms of where are moments in the day that you can help yourself with self-care? Where have you not set boundaries for yourself, with yourself, for others? And I will always mention this, Simone. The things that I'm saying are things that I put myself through. Boundary setting for someone who started in hospitality industry at 15, you have I had to do magic because I grew up as a people pleaser. Yes, ma'am, I'll do this for you, whatever you need. And so now at 35, I bought a scrub and a body scrub, you know, those gloves and a
Mm-hmm.
back to not take a 30-second shower, to reduce screen time and take a 5-minute shower and go through it with maybe meditation or music I feel like doing and indulging for the day. And that has changed so much. Here's the thing. The first time I did that, for 3 days, I didn't shower because it was so foreign to me. It was so scary.
Yeah.
I didn't want to fail myself in the self-care, but I also couldn't get myself to do it. So slowly I took steps. We tend to blame everything around us. I think if we're going to make goals, all the goals should be focused on what are we choosing for yourself. Now, hospitality, tourism, service industry, none of it is easy. And I'm speaking to people in other industries like the hospital industry. None of it is easy. But if we really look at it, are there really no moments to take care of yourself so that it doesn't affect you negatively?
Absolutely. And different environments where different people work. If you're working from home and you're remote, you do have more opportunity for this. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you work in an office space, you don't have opportunity for this. Because one of the things that I've spoken to my clients about this year and is more of a focus for me is the mindfulness part of my business. It's been a journey of mine to be more mindful. The first habit I'm telling my clients is between tasks is to just simply take a breath. Take a moment, reground yourself because jumping from task to task, and I actually started doing this for myself. And today I'd stopped doing the process and I found out what happens when you don't. I was sitting and I was like, I feel like I haven't done anything today. I don't know what to do next. I'm adding tasks to my task list more and more and more when the list is actually quite long. And I'm just feeling like I'm not getting enough done through the day. I'm not capitalizing on the day. Versus Monday, where I did it, and it's just a simple breath to end the task and let it go. And it is beyond helpful. And that's why I say for people who are in the office, that's very possible. Another thing that I also try to do is like 10 o'clock tea time is meditation. So I'll just
Mm,
go and sit and lie on the bed. Like that's because I'm able to work from my home and just for 5 minutes is just sit and listen to music, just lie down with my eyes closed and just clear my head.
yes,
It's finding time for you doesn't have to be an hour of walking in the park, like we're saying. It's like you can find time for yourself in the day. You just have to look. And like you're saying, is it's up to us. It's our responsibility to not blame the job and say it's because of this and this that I can't. Instead, take ownership. That is one of the points in the 7 habits of highly effective people is to be proactive. And proactive doesn't mean
yes.
to work all the time. Proactive means to take responsibility for your actions, to make good choices. So I really like that. Thank you so much.
And I think, thank you for sharing, Simone, because what is happening for me when you speak is I'm getting ideas and I'm writing it down. And we're not saying it's easy. We both worked in an office before. And I can picture that Najiba, and I can't imagine ever doing it.
Mm.
I can't imagine doing it. But there was a period where I was a smoker, and I went downstairs and I smoked and I socialized. And that didn't happen once or twice or thrice. So I made time for a bad habit that contributed to my interpretation of breathing and taking a break. Am I really someone who doesn't have time? Are we really people who don't have time? Or is it easier to choose not to use time so that we can feed our mindset of, I don't have time?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm still reading The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, so I'll probably talk about it a lot. But in the book, they speak about production and production capacity. And what that is basically is if you have a lawnmower and you just use it every day, every month, every week, and you never service it, eventually it will wear out. And then to try and fix it once it's broken is going to cost you so much more versus if you just maintain it. So if you're trying to bring the production without the production capacity without focusing on maintaining it. What that means is, as a human being, it's our mental health. If you're going to overwork the system and constantly work at every hour of every second of the day and not maintain the system, burnout is imminent. So we're speaking about practices that are going to prevent that by finding 2 minutes of the day to take a breath, by finding 5 minutes before you coming to work, after you work. It's about maintaining yourself and maintaining your production capacity so that you're able to have a sustainable output. Working with a lot of people, especially in the travel industry, you work with a lot of different people. It's not just your colleagues, but it's also different clients, types of clients. We spoke about being an active listener as part of communication. Communication is not just the spoken word. There are different elements about communication. And today I wanted to speak about that in itself is what are some common misconceptions about communication? What more can you tell us about communication? Because I think people underestimate what communication actually is in the business.
I honestly become a parrot when I talk about communication, regardless of how the question is posed. Because my core belief, and I learned this through experience, is communication is we think and we were taught, and the system of society tells us it's about talking. And there has to be a sound verbally coming out of your mouth. But nothing, no interview, no radio station, no podcast, no business, no interaction would flourish if there wasn't somebody listening, if we weren't giving time to absorb the information. If we picture you and I in the podcast and both of us were talking on top of each other, that's a misinterpretation of communication. If people are watching closely, there's a lot of time where we are making eye contact, we are talking, we're having nodding gestures. When we're really listening, we'll go into a space of looking to the side or turning our heads. The misconception of communication is we have to talk, and this is the worst part. We have to get our message across at all costs. Can you feel that mindset? Do you know that mindset?
Mm-hmm.
We have to get our message across at all costs. Sometimes it's not the time for our message to get there. Sometimes we need to lean into the person talking to us. This is communication and empathy are very closely. When you're knitting and you have the two needles, they go together. Communication and empathy is like the knitting needles bringing everything together. And we need to start taking more time to understand what someone is trying to tell us. And then we need to take more time to analyze how we are bringing messages across. And most of the time, the messages that we are bringing across is not actually what we're thinking, nor is it what we want to say. And again, I'm talking completely about myself because I'll come home and I'll think, well, that had nothing to do with what I wanted to do or nothing to do with my intention. And I think we don't allow others. We don't allow them to speak. So we hear them, we listen to them, we can see that they're talking, but we're not allowing them to speak, and we're not allowing ourselves to absorb the information to respond. So my biggest point of communication is, firstly, you need to practice to do what I'm saying. I did not understand it only by reading books or listening to podcasts. I had to interact and I had to make mistakes. And there were many moments where I was like, you know that feeling? So practice, have conversations. We know a lot of people. If you're in the service industry, be mindful of when you talk to a guest. Not only of the guest and what they say, but be mindful of yourself. When do you want to speak? When can you pause? When should you pause? And the only way to master communication is to master understanding. Firstly, how do I communicate and what needs to change?
Absolutely. What you sparked in me was email. So let's look at a business with email communication. A lot of the time, there's a lot of people that don't communicate effectively. When you're sending an email, make sure that what you're saying makes sense. Make sure that it is understood. And then the second thing goes, when you receive an email, make sure to read it properly. I think we're in such a rush all the time. It's so fast paced that we've not taken the time to actually just take a breath and read the email with a clear mind, because a lot of the time is then sometimes you'll respond and then you'll actually see, oh, sure, but I'm asking the information, but it was actually given to me. And that
Mm.
ties with what you're saying is being an active listener and allowing the person to say what they're going to say is the same thing when it comes to emails or written communication is give this person the same amount of space that you would if they were there. Don't just rush past what they're saying because then you're going to miss something or even worse, misinterpret something. So I thought that was really awesome.
I think technology has dented the way that humans communicate, and it's quite negative. And I think we always going to learn how to communicate better with technology and interact. But just an example that popped up with me with email and WhatsApp. Sometimes, depending on the day we had, the environment we're in, what we ate, how we're feeling, how we slept, we can misinterpret an email and a WhatsApp. So the simplest advice, pick up the phone and call the person before you respond. And there's many doctors that just therapists, everybody, motivational speakers that say when you're angry or when you feeling an emotion, those triggers, don't text, don't message, don't call. Take a step back. Close the laptop. Take a step back. Because those are the times where we miscommunicate and we mess everything up for ourselves and then the entire situation. So we have technology and we have to adapt to it, but how can we adapt to it so there's still human interaction within it? And that's what I hear from you.
Absolutely. It's not forgetting that there's a human that you're sending that email to. You're not sending an email to a bot. You're not sending a WhatsApp to a bot. You're sending a message to another human being. Thank you for that. Having you on the show has been wonderful, learning more about you. So I'd love to hear, just to close off, what is something that you are excited about right now?
I'm most excited about trying out the person I discovered through last year's challenges. So everything that I went through, that I overcame, that I perceived as completely difficult and that I didn't have the capacity to overcome, I overcame it, I went through it, and I'm excited now in 2026 to see what that person creates, to see what that part of Najiba can do and how she can help people and what her emotions are like. So the fresh discoveries created from those challenges, I'm very excited to see. Okay, so we overcame that and there's new parts of you that you've discovered. What can she do? Let's put her forward and understand how she can help people and help herself first. So very excited about seeing what's next for me with all my plans and my new beginning.
I love that you are benchmarking when you are rushing through life, when you are rushing through checklists, when you are rushing through goals, you're not benchmarking and saying, oh my goodness, this is where I was and this is where I am right now. And having that as a guiding factor towards your behavior and almost prototyping your behavior now where you're saying, I'm doing this with, I want to do these things. I think it is a lot of the time what people don't generally do. I'm hosting my first goal setting workshop next week. And
Wow, congratulations.
thank you. And a lot of the time, people don't align with who they are when they are setting their goals for the future. And also, what they don't do is reflect and say, this is the mistakes that I keep making, and even celebrate. And part of my goal setting process is celebration. It is something that I've struggled with. And I think a lot of people struggle with is to say, these are my wins. It's lovely that you are focusing on an inward journey with reflection of who you were and who you are now. Are you working on anything right now? I'd love to hear if you are, and how can people get involved if what you're working on sounds cool?
So definitely this year I am I used to lecture at 2 universities, and I've started last year by helping a student with career guidance, especially in service and hospitality industry. And it happened by chance. And that's the best encounters that we have. So something new for me that I'm indulging in and people can contact me for is helping grade 11s, grade 12s, and anybody that really needs guidance within what to study, where to study, how they can study. If I am unable to help to a certain capacity, I also have colleagues that I can refer them to. So there's a nice ripple effect. So coaching is definitely something I'm going back into. And then I'd like to, and this was an idea of last year, this is what I'm going to start, do the Kintsugi facilitation more often at mosque, churches, different groups, empowerment groups, anger management, any sector that's interested in healing through the Kintsugi art. That's definitely, I have 3 workshops lined up already. And then my biggest offer is to every individual everywhere that wants to have a conversation, whether you want to talk to me as a life coach, as a person to listen, as perhaps you're writing a book and you need to run it by someone that you don't know. It's what I'm going to offer. So if anyone wants to reach me, my email, are you going to put everything in the caption like you did last time? So you can reach me on those captions for email. I also have WhatsApp that I business with. And then if you watch this podcast and you have a business or you have an opportunity and you're sitting there and you're thinking, Najiba would be great for this opportunity, I'm open to that because I want to be in the season of not controlling and leading with purpose. And often we can't see things that people can see about us, and I'm open to indulging in that. So that's my I don't want to say goal, Simone. That's my alignment for my season that I'm in.
I love that. Really think, first of all, the metric and helping people find what they wanted to study, like, oh my gosh, I definitely need that. Because I took an aptitude test and I don't even remember what it said. And then how I chose my degree was I took a gap year and then I was working in Cape Town and then I flew back and then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to study. And then we were standing in line because I had to register. It was like the last day. And I'm standing in line with my mom and we're looking at the degrees. We're just looking there like this. And I'm like, oh, sure, but we're third in line. Okay, marketing. Like, that's how I chose my
Feels
degree.
like a eeny meeny.
Literally, literally. And I loved my degree. I really did enjoy it. Do I wish I studied something else? Yes. But I did thoroughly enjoy it. So having someone like you with that personal element, not just to write up a certain set of points and giving you the results, which didn't really help and it didn't stick as well because it came from a computer. If it had come from a person, it definitely would have aided in a decision that I made instead of spending that money on the computer. I would have rather just spoken to someone. So that is a great value. And if people want to do that, I definitely recommend speaking to you. I wish I would have 18-year-old Simone could have called Najiba of today for some advice. So anyone who does have that ability, take advantage because you can do that. Great. So thank you so much for taking time for us today. I really hope that my guests are leaving this conversation with the lessons that I'm definitely walking away with, as it always is with Najiba. And if you enjoyed this conversation, I am going to post on LinkedIn and I'd love to hear more about what everyone thinks because this is a one-way conversation right now and we'd like to keep that as a two-way conversation. But until next time, thank you for joining us, Najiba. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for your time. I enjoyed it so much.
And to my listeners, thank you for listening. Be safe and have fun.